Invincible Season 4 is just around the corner, and I could not be more hyped. Every season of Invincible so far has just been straight up peak, and I am so excited to see what they have in store. However, all this hype with the new season, and the fact that the Season 3 finale is almost a year old, it really got me thinking to Season 3 in general. And how throughout every episode, everybody and their mothers was just excited for 2 events and 2 events only. Those obviously being the Invincible War,
I wouldn't even keep you as a slave!
And the Conquest fight. And man, when these 2 episodes came out, I was straight up just obsessed with everything. For the next 2 months, all I could do was sleep, eat, and breathe these 2 events. And when it comes to the Invincible War specifically, even back then when I was the most excited about it, deep down I knew that from a story perspective, it wasn't really the best. However, now that the hype has calmed down, I think I fully understand what makes this event so painfully mid for me, and what just annoys me a lot when it comes to fans talking about this event and the variants themselves. Now, I know that even saying the Invincible War is flawed is quite the hard pill to swallow, but just bear with me. By starting off with the main event itself. The premise of the Invincible War is pretty simple. Angstrom recruits different evil Invincibles from alternate dimensions and tells them to cause as much destruction as possible. However, this is where the problems already start. Angstrom's motivation in this is really confusing and dare I say just straight up kind of bad. I understand that the entire point of his character is that he's insane, but I feel like there's only so far that can get you. When the entire premise is him teaming up with evil Invincibles. For some of these guys, he even has memories of them killing his family members. And I know that one of the reasons why he hates our Mark is due to his machine exploding and him thinking that Mark did that. But if he hates our Mark because he thinks he's evil, why doesn't he spend all his time killing the Marks that he knows are evil? And I know people say that he was just gonna betray all of them at the end, but I don't really believe that. I know that he does end up stranding them in the desert dimension, but that was more of a backup plan. He even states after his fight with Mark that he was gonna bring them back. I definitely think they over-exaggerated his character a lot this season, and I feel like it would have been really easy if they just gave some reason on why he teamed up with evil Invincibles without getting rid of the point of his character. Why did Angstrom also only get 18 variants? There was nothing stopping him from getting more. Angstrom isn't the only character in this event that has character problems, however, as Mark Grayson himself falls into this category and is very inconsistent. And I already know people are gonna pull the same people not realizing that the story of Invincible is about an immature teenager learning to be mature excuse, but that honestly doesn't really even make any sense to bring up because people act like that just automatically justifies his actions. It's immaturity to a point, but it's also kind of just blatant mischaracterization. He actively chooses to stay with Eve knowing that heroes are dying to protect Earth, including Oliver, who is literally fighting for his life against multiple Invincible variants. He also has no idea where his mom is, and instead of looking for them and helping all the other heroes, he decides to stay with Eve in the most guarded place on Earth. When in the past, Mark has put his life on the line multiple times to save Earth, and has constantly taken action whenever people needed his help.
Had enough yet?
I'll stop you.
I'm ready when you are. To show them how wrong they are, how pointless it is, that they can be a part of something bigger. Or die.
I won't let you.
They should have thought about that before they brought it home from the store.
I can't leave those people to die.
They tried to kill you. They were cheering.
All they wanted was justice for what my dad did.
You're not your father, Mark.
That's why I'm going back.
Mark, Oliver's out there. Your mother is out there.
I said no.
You're gonna have to explain this to Eve when she wakes up, but she's not going to like it.
I don't care.
I hope you don't regret this. Please.
So yeah, as much as they care for each other, I really don't think Eve being hurt would be enough to stop Mark from getting back out there and helping all the other heroes. Especially when they're in the most guarded place on Earth, like I said before. Like I also said before, I'm not saying that immaturity doesn't have anything to do with it. That definitely plays a factor in it, but that doesn't just make it so his actions are unable to be criticized. And what also annoys me is the fact that this is just never brought up again. And Mark doesn't really face any consequences for his actions here. Now to be fair, I feel like there wasn't a proper place to put something like this. And by the looks of it, Season 4 is really gonna dive deep into the effects that the Invincible War and Conquest had. So I really hope they mention this. Now let's move on to one of the most talked about parts of this event, that being Rex's sacrifice. Now, based off of what I've been saying about the Invincible War, you probably think I'm gonna start complaining about Rex's death. However, that's far from the truth. I think the entire scene and his death itself is done really well and a great way to close off his character. However, as good as his death is, I can't help but think that if they gave him just a little bit more screen time in this episode, it would have hit a little harder. I honestly wish we got a little bit more time to dwell on Rex's death a little more as well. I think they cut to the montage of all the death and destruction that the variants caused a little too quickly, and it made Rex's sacrifice feel a little bit sidelined, which I would say is kind of my only real complaint about the scene. And it doesn't help that his funeral scene was pretty bad. And you know, this whole event also just felt really sidelined and also really rushed and disappointing. It all just goes by so fast, and on one hand I kinda like it because it feels like you have no time to breathe throughout all the chaos. But at the same time, an extended version of the Invincible War would have just gone so hard. Anyways, now that we talked about some of our main characters, let's take a moment to talk about the variants, which are the main part of this event. For what the variants are, I honestly really like them. I think most of their designs are genuinely really good, and it's really fun to see a little bit of each one's personality to see how different each mark is. And while it is fun to theorize on what could have happened under Earth, these variants are just so overhyped. I mean, with the amount of edits that they have and how people talk about them in general, you would think that these are fully developed characters, and had full-on stories given to them by the show. But whether you like it or not, these are kinda just reskinned props based off of the main character, that mainly just exists for one event. I mean, you can barely even call them characters with the amount of screen time that they have. There's also a really big majority of people that try to defend these variants, specifically No Mask Invincible and Full Mask Invincible, because one of them said that they miss William even though they were covered in the blood of someone they just murdered, and the other one because he wants to kidnap our Mark's Debbie, just rephrased it in a different way, to make him sound more innocent. Look, Full Mask Mark is my favorite variant and always has been, but this man is 100% evil, let's not defend him. Also, these variants in the event itself just really mess with the power scaling, since it's stated that these marks are weaker than our main mark, but that would still put him at minimum Season 1 level, which would still make them strong enough to throw an entire meteor back into space. And yet the GTA and a bunch of other heroes are able to defeat a lot of them pretty easily, which kinda takes away a lot from what Season 2 was about, since one of the main focuses was worrying about Mark turning evil, and how they wouldn't be able to stop him if he did. And I know there's still the threat of the entire Viltrum Empire coming to Earth, but a lot of Season 2 was mainly just focused on Mark's character and him not being his dad. And the Invincible War kinda takes away from that, since you see 9 different alternate dimension Invincibles get easily dealt with by other heroes. To be fair, the whole power scaling thing is a problem for the show in general, but it also just affects this episode specifically. Speaking of power scaling, I honestly hate when people take these variants and put them in stupid who would win matches or who is stronger things, and then proceed to judge them based on how strong they are. And instead of talking about what made the episode so good, they just talk about all the aura that the Invincible variants had. I just think the whole power scaling thing is really toxic and leads to a bunch of pointless arguments. And I don't like how basically all the hype that comes from the Invincible variants is people making up things and glazing what they aren't instead of actually appreciating what they are and the impact that they had. I also just kinda hate the term aura sometimes, and I think the Invincible War is genuinely a factor in that. Cool hype moments in aura doesn't automatically equal peak storytelling and writing, that's just not how it works. Sinister Mark was honestly really cool in Season 2 though, they did him so dirty in the Invincible War. So yeah, I know I got a little bit off track there towards the end and started talking about the community, but I just felt like I needed to talk about it due to how the Invincible variants are treated, and how sometimes it impacts my view on the Invincible War event. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. I still love this show, but I just thought the Invincible War was painfully mid. But if it makes you feel any better, I do think the show version was better than the comic one. So with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you will have a great rest of your day. Bye!
Mark, take a night off.